Daf Pei Vav Amud Aleph, 5 lines from the top. We were discussing previously that Rebbe, he was Mechabed Ashirim, that he gave honor to wealthy people. The Gemara continues on with other demonstrations of that. Rebbe Mechabed Ashirim, Rebbe would be Mechabed wealthy people. Rebbe Kiva Mechabed Ashir, Rebbe Kiva also would be Mechabed Ashirim. Kidadarish Rava Bar Mori says in the pasuk, Yeshev Oilam Lifnei Elakim Chesed ve'emes Man Yisru. Says that the king should sit and be there forever before Hashem, and Chesed and Emes, kindness and truth, they should preserve him. They should protect him. So he darshans that Eimosa Yeshev Oilam Lifnei Elakim. When is the world settled before Hashem? When is that? Bisman Shechesed ve'emes Man Yisru. When, that is, when they give chesed and emes, when they give to the poor, to the aniyim, when they support the aniyim, then the world is settled before Hashem. So therefore you see the importance at the giving tzedakah and giving money into the poor and supporting the poor and doing chesed, that supports the whole world. So therefore the wealthy are roy to have kavod. Now, assuming, of course, that they do use their wealth to do chesed ve'emes, but that preserves the world, so they're worthy of kavod. Continuing on with what we learned in the Mishnah, we learned that if the owner, he rents out his house, or he gives his house, he lends out his house to somebody else, but as long as the owner keeps some of his items in the house, he is still considered to be the owner, and the tenant does not aser on the rest of the people, on the rest of the chaser. Rabbi Baruch Hana Amar Kigon Yaseh Shel Machresha, he says even if the item that the owner has in the house is even something so small like a Yaseh Shel Machresha, the peg, the blade that's used for the plow, even that small instrument itself, that's enough to say that he retains his right over there, and he's still considered to be the owner and the resident, and the tenant does not aser. Amar Rav Nachman Kolov said, there's Tana the baby Shmuel. Dover hanitel b'Shabbos, something which is not muksa, which you can carry on Shabbos, that type of item, aser. If the balabayas has in his house something that can be moved, something that's not muksa, something that can be taken out of the house, then the tenant does aser. Then we don't consider it to be that the balabais is the resident, because the item that he has in his house can be moved. But but something which is muksa, which cannot be removed from the house, then the tenant doesn't aser, because the balabais is considered to have retained some permanent usage of the house, a use that is there on Shabbos. So therefore he can still consider to be residing in the house. So the way it's understood, the Rishonim understand over here that this is not arguing what we said before. This is just explaining it. In fact, Rabbi Baruch Hana said, Yaseh Shel Machresha, the example that he gave was something that something is muksa. So it's an explanation of what was said previously. There is a din in the Achronim, it's mashma, and the way the Bach learns in Rashi, that the item that is muksa, if it's muksa, then the tenant cannot remove it from the house. So we're saying it's a davar which is muksa, it's ein oiser, because the tenant cannot remove it on the house, because it's muksa, it can't be removed on Shabbos, and therefore the balabais retains use of the house, which is mashma that even though the balabais didn't have reshus to place his item there, meaning that the seicher, the tenant, could remove it. The only reason he's not removing it is because it's muksa. It's mashma that even if the landowner, the homeowner rather, did not have permission to leave his item over there, he would still consider it to be the resident. It would not aser it. If it's something which is muksa, the tenant cannot remove it, even though the balabais did not have permission to put it there. Nevertheless, the tenant would not oiser, because the balabais is still considered to be there. If it's something which is not muksa, the seicher, the tenant, can remove it, so therefore he does aser. But others learn, and not that way, the Marik wants to learn not that way, that if something that the owner does not have permission to put over there, you cannot consider it to be that he retains rights over there, that he's considered the resident. The fact that he has an item over there doesn't mean anything. He doesn't have permission to have that item over there. So that is a dion in the Paiskim. Is it required that the owner has permission to keep the item there that he has in the house? There's a dion on a davar, which is the Meiri has a dion on a davar, which is a klisha malachta le'isser. It's muksa, but it's a klisha malachta le'isser, which means it can be removed the sort of gufa mekayma. Do we consider this to be a davar which is muksa, and therefore the balabais is still considered to have his reshus and shlit over there, and iser? Do we say no? Under certain circumstances, it could be moved. It's a sort of guf mekayma could be removed. It's not considered to be that he retained the right over there, a right that will be permanently there on Shabbos. Tanya Namahachi, the Mora says, Yesh loy tevel, yesh loy ashoshes. If there's tevel in the house, or he has metal bars in the house, v'chol davar sheinu nitl b'Shabbos, or anything which cannot be removed on Shabbos, if it cannot be removed on Shabbos, eina oiser, it doesn't aser. It says over here a case of something which is muksa, a case of tevel, where you have not been mafresh the trumas and maasros, so it can't be eaten. It's muksa. So you see that what we're dealing with is something as muksa. What about ashoshes? What about bars? So some want to learn that the cases of the bars are muksa because it's raw material, it's not a kli, it's that it's muksa. But others want to learn that want to bring a raya from here, that even if something is not muksa, it's just something which is heavy, it's a heavy item, and it's not moved because of its weight, that also we will say it's like a davar muksa. It's going to be permanently in its house. It's going to be there on Shabbos. It's not going to be removed, and therefore the balabais is still considered residing in the house and einoi oiser. So that is a dion. Do we say this ashoshish? Does this indicate that we're dealing with something which is muksa, like the case of tevel, or is it a new category? Is it ashoshish is not muksa, but it's something which is very heavy? And the fact that it's very heavy, even though theoretically it might be able to be moved, but it's not going to be removed on Shabbos, that alone would we say in such a case, and therefore eino oiser. Zok the Mishnah, hamaniach beisay v'halach lishbois biracheres. If a person left his house and he went and he'd make Shabbos in a different city, so we know that a person he has to join in an Eruv. All the residents of the Hofstedter have to join in an Eruv. And if even one did not, then that answers on everybody. And that's a Yisrael has to join in an Eruv. A Nochri has to rent out his rights. He has to be masker to the rights to the other Yidden, otherwise he answers. The issue over here in the Mishnah is what happens, what's the din if they are not in their house? If they left the city. If they left the city and they're no longer here, do they still have the same dinim? Do they answer on the other residents if they don't join the Eruv in the case of Yisrael, or in the case of the Nachri if he's not Seicher Mekayim? So the Mishnah says that if he left and he went to another city, Echad Nachri, Echad Yisrael, Arei Zoiser, they do answer. They differ. That's what Rameir says. He says that even though they're not here, they answer. So Rashi says that he holds that a dira beloy baalim is shmei dira, even though they're not here, it's still considered a dira. It's still considered their dira, and therefore they would answer on the other members of the Hofstedter if they do not join in the Eruv or Seichem B'Kaima. That's the way Rashi explains it. Rabbi Kiva Eger says as much of the Gemara Daf Samach Beis that essentially the Maskonis he agrees that a dira beloy ba'im is loy shmei dira, but it's a loy plug. However, Rashi explains it over here that he holds a dira beloy ba'im that it is a dira. It's considered a dira. Rabbi Yehuda says it does not answer because Rabbi Yehuda holds that a dira beloy ba'im is loy shmei dira. It's not a dir, and therefore he's not considered to be a resident, and he doesn't answer it. Rabbi Yossi Omer, he says, Nochri Eiser. Yisrael Eino Iser. He says that really essentially he agrees that their dira below Baalim is Leish Medir. Really maker, then he agrees with Rav Yehuda. So he says, however, but a Nachri would aser. A Yisrael does not aser, but a Nachri would aser. Why is that? What's the chilik? Shein derech Yisrael over b'Shabbos. Because a Yisrael will not come, it's not the norm that he will come on Shabbos. So therefore he's considered to be that he's not living here. But a Goy, a Nachri could come on Shabbos. And therefore it's not considered to be a dir b'lei Baalim because he could return. He says Rav Shimon says even if they didn't leave the city, even if it's in the same city, and he went to make Shabbos Eitzel Bita to his daughter in the same city, Eino Iser, it still doesn't aser. Shekvar Yisayim Eliboy, because he put it out of his mind, and he went to his daughter. He's not thinking to come back to his house on Shabbos. So even if he's in the same city, it's considered a dira b'lei Baalim, which is an Leish Medir. So therefore he says that this, even without leaving the city, is considered a dira b'lei Baalim, but it won't aser. On the Rav Halacha, Rav Shimon. That's halacha. And he says, V'davke bita. When do we say it's not likely that he'll return? It's davke if it's his daughter. Aval b'noi loy. But if it's a son, we don't say that it's so unlikely that he will return, because maybe they will not get along so well with his daughter-in-law, and therefore maybe he will return. The expression is that people say, Navach bach kal ba'ol. If a dog, a zachar male dog, barks, then still go in. But navach bag yurasa puk. But if a female dog barks at you, then leave, go out. Meaning, it's not likely that if he's by his daughter that he will come home on Shabbos. By his daughter-in-law, it's not quite the same, so therefore he could come home. But essentially holds that if it's not likely that he's going to come home, it's considered dira b'lei Baalim, Leish Medir, and he does not aser. Zok the Mishnah, bor shebein shtei chatzeres. If you have a bor, a pit, it has water, a cistern with water, that's between two chatzeres. So you have a chatzer on one side, a chatzer on the other side. In the middle is a bor with water. There is a kaisel that separates the two chatzeres. It runs over the bor, but does not run into the bor. So it spans the bor, separates the chatzeres. The chatzeres, they made their own era, but they were not ma'ariv together. Now we have a principle of Arevi Maya that the water in the bor is considered all mixed together, and therefore it doesn't belong to one chatzer or to the other chatzer. Therefore, in order to separate it and to be able to allow it to be carried from one to the other, we have to make a mechitza in the bor, as we'll see in the Mishnah. But if we don't do that, in the absence of that, if you take a bucket that's in one house in the chatzer, and then you draw water, it's considered to be brought from a house in one chatzer to another chatzer. Or if you draw water from the bor and bring that into the house, it's considered to be bringing water from one chatzer into a house, into another chatzer. So you have to make a tikkun, you have to make a mechitza to separate the water, so to speak, one from the other. So bor shebein shtei chatzeres ein memalim mimenu b'Shabbos. You cannot draw water from it on Shabbos. Ela mikein also lemechitza gavoya asara tefachim. You have to make a mechitza which is 10 tefachim high. Bein milmata, bein miteich ugna, whether it's lower at the bottom or within the lip of the bor. So we'll have to define what does lamata mean. We'll see in the Gemara. Now Rav Shimon Gamliel says Beis Shammai milmata. Beis Shammai says it means below. Again, in the Gemara we'll define what does milmata mean. Or Beis Hillel milmala, it can be above. And again, in the Gemara, we'll see what Memala means. Amar Rav Yehuda says it's not necessary because you have the kaisel of the chatzar. You have the major wall that separates the chatzeres. The wall that you would make in the bor cannot be more effective than the wall of the chatzeres. So this effectively separates it. So you don't need another mechitza. So now, Rav Shimon Gamliel said that there's machlekes Beis Shammai. Now we're going to define now and have a machlekes. What exactly does that mean? Omer Rav Yehuda lamata lamata mamish. When Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says that Beis Shammai says lamata, it means lamata, below. It doesn't have to be all the way to the bottom of the bore. It means below, right to the surface of the water. So if you have the water here, there's the bore, you have this water, it doesn't have to go all the way, the mechitza doesn't have to go all the way to the bottom. It means to the top of the surface of the water. It means lamata mamish. It means below, near the surface of the water. It doesn't even have to touch the water. Lamala, when Beis Hillel says lamala, means lamala mamish, and means also, literally means on top. It means near the lip of the bore. It means near the lip of the bore. But it has to be within the whole mechitza, has to be within the bore. It's not above the bore, it's within the lip of the bore. That's what Rav Huna says. Rav Yehuda, he says lamata min hamayim. He says no. When it's lamata, it has to be below the water, on the bottom of the bore. It has to be below the surface of the water, on down to the bottom. It has to be on the floor of the bore. And lamala min hamayim. And above means above the water. It's within the bore. It's within the lip of the bore. But it has to be come down to the surface of the water. So it means lamala min hamayim. So that's a machlekes. Amar le Rabbi Baruch Bar Chanala Baye. Hadam Rabbi Yehuda says lamata min hamayim. That he said, Rabbi Yehuda says that lamata means that it means on the floor. It means below the surface of the water. Ma'ishno lamata mamish deloi. Why do you say that it has to be that on the floor? And why is it you say that it has to be below? That, and if you have it above the water, that it's not kosher dari v'maya, because the water of the chaseres were mixed. Therefore, you have to have it on the bottom. Lamata min hamayim nami. Well, even if you have it on the floor, it's the same thing. Hari v'maya. What's the difference if you have it on the floor? So it's on the bottom. It's on the bottom of the bore. But the water will be mixed on top. Why do you say that it can't be over here? Because otherwise the water will mix below. Why don't you say, he says lamata, it means lamata min hamayim. It has to be below the surface of the water. Why do you say that it can't be that lamata mamish, it can't be just to the surface of the water, because the water will get mixed below and the water from each side will get below? Well, if you have it on the bottom, even if you have it on the bottom, the water will get mixed above. So what's the difference? Didn't you hear that? It says Mat Mishum Rabbi Chia, and some say in the name of Rabbi Chia, Tzarach Shiro Rosh Shel Kanam L'Malam and Mayim Tefach. No, what it means is it's at the bottom, but it has to extend up a tefach. It has to be above the surface of the water. So it's from the bottom and it extends top to the surface, and has to extend up. Therefore, there's a complete separation between the two sides. It's from the bottom all the way up to the top, and top lamala from the surface of the water. That's what it means. It doesn't mean only on the bottom. It means on the bottom, but it also extends up. Additionally, Hadam Rav Yehuda said that in Beis Hillel, when it says lamala, Beis Hillel says lamala, it's lamala min hamayim. It means above the surface of the water. So ma'ishna lamala mamish deloy. Why do you say that it doesn't mean lamala mamish? That means towards the lip of the bore, but it has to be above the surface of the water. It doesn't mean that it's lamala, by the lip of the bore. Why do you say that it's that way? Because dariva maya, because the waters will get mixed in below. The water will get mixed in. If you say that it means by the lip of the bore, well, the waters below will all get mixed in. Well, if that's the case, Lamala Minamayim Nami, if you say that it's above the surface of the water, Ha'ariva Maya, the waters will still get mixed in below. What's the difference? That even if you say it's Lamala Minamayim, but below it the waters are all mixed together. So what have you accomplished? It's still all mixed together over here. What's the difference if it's lower down or higher up? But the waters will all be mixed together over here. When they said that it means on the surface, but it means it has to extend the konim, the reeds have to extend the tefach below. So therefore it has the appearance, the mechitza has the appearance of separating the waters, that it extends below, and that there's a real separation. It's not enough just to have it on here, because it doesn't have the appearance of separating the waters on the two sides. It has to extend. It doesn't have to come, according to Beis Hillel, all the way to the bottom, to the floor, but it has to go below the surface of the water tefach to give the appearance of separating it into two sides.